now Mark Ersagi, who is an advisor on the University or Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Hungary.
Thank you very much. First of all, a great thanks to the organizers, to all the organizers who invited me to this very important and relevant conference, and I came here to learn a lot about, first of all, about the approach of Orthodoxy, the Orthodox world, to all these topics that we are discussing right now. I am working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so I'm not an educational expert, and I am dealing with religion and diplomacy. So I'm basically helping my diplomat colleagues, Hungarian diplomat colleagues, understanding the phenomenon of religion, how does it shape international relations, or relations between nations, between states. So because, of course, when we go out on a mission in a different country, we will certainly meet religion. We will certainly have to consider religion because it is normally a relevant factor in the identity and in the life of that other country, of that other nation where we are sent to represent our own country. So if we want to understand them, we have to understand also religion and eventually try to help and organize our relations, keeping it in mind and maybe asking for the help of religious actors, churches, faith-based organizations, in order to help our friendship grow and be more effective. And my colleagues know that I am dealing with this issue, which is very interesting, but they don't really know it. No, because religion is something we don't really know it. This is the Western European secularized approach to this issue. So they know that I will help them eventually to understand this phenomenon. It is good for me because it seems that I am important within the ministry, but I always say to them that it is not only me who has to deal with religion in diplomacy, but every ambassador, every consul general of ours, because they also need to understand and to deal with religion in that country where they are sent, because that is important for the identity of that country, of that nation. So it is a question also of religious literacy. Okay, this is already a question of education. Religious literacy is not that high nowadays, especially here in Europe or in the western part of Europe, and this is an issue that we are realizing progressively, not only here in Hungary, but also at a European level, and we are starting to speak about that religious literacy is a must. It must be enhanced also within or among people who are dealing with international relations, among diplomats, so to speak. Because of its relevance, and that we feel that we lack something for the understanding of the world. This is what I'm dealing with. But did you know that the two holy brothers of Thessaloniki, Saint Cyril and Methodius, lived also in Hungary for a brief period in the 960s, for some months. And did you know that their presence there, next to Lake Balaton, and I recommend you to visit Hungary and to come to the Lake Balaton, it's very nice, it was archaeologically identified the place where they stayed. And their presence was identified because during excavations of an ancient town of Moseburg, where they stayed, some pieces of pottery were found with some glagolitic letters on. And they were easily be dated on those same years when St. Cyril and Methodius operated in that city. So their presence, the presence of Eastern Christianity in the territory of Hungary, is also linked to education. They came and tried to educate, to instruct the population there. First of all, teach them the faith. But in order to be able to teach the faith, of course, they had to elevate them also spiritually, intellectually, materially as well. So we have this interesting proof. And then came the Hungarians, in the end of the 9th century, in the 10th century, and the Hungarians were not Christians yet, or mostly not. They were pagans. And it took 100 years, more or less, until we, Hungarians, took our place within the European context. It was a very harsh way, because we came to Greece, we went to the western countries of Europe with our arches and pillaging monasteries and cities and so on. Es agittis Hungarorum libera nos domine. It was the litany of Western church in Europe. And then it happened that a ruler of the Hungarians understood that this cannot go on. We will perish if we don't adopt the European values. That means Christianity. We will meet the same fate that other tribes, other peoples who settled in that area, the Carpathian Basin, before us, did encounter. The Avars, the Longobards, who then went further, the Gepids, and who knows these peoples anymore? The archaeologists, they know them. So the decision our ruler took is to adopt Christianity. It was Prince Geza, and when he died, the rule was taken over by a certain Vojk, who was baptized by the former bishop of Prague, a certain Adalbert, Saint Adalbert. And what was one of the first things that he did? He went to the Pope, he sent to the Pope an abbot, a Benedictine abbot, and asked for a crown. So we had a crown. What this crown did mean? That one of the main political figures of Europe, of the Christian world, recognized Hungary as a Christian nation, as an independent Christian nation. Independent both from the Holy Roman Empire and from the Eastern Roman Empire, from Byzantium. So the independent and Christian Hungary was made by the crowning of Saint Stephen. And that same crown, which is believed to be the same that was used for Saint Stephen, is nowadays, continues to be nowadays, the symbol of the statehood of Hungary, the symbol of its continuity during history. And it is therefore not kept anymore in a museum, but in the House of Parliament. And it is featured also on the national coat of arms, although we are not a monarchy, we are a republic for the moment. So the Christian Hungary was made. The question was how to make Christian Hungarians. Oh, that sounds interesting. First Christian Hungary and then the Christian Hungarians. And yes, what was the policy? King St. Stephen asked for monks from Germany mainly, but also from Italy, from other countries in the neighborhood. They sent a lot of Benedictine monks. They started to pray and to work, building monasteries. And what is a constant feature of monasteries? They have schools. So the foundation of the first Benedictine monastery in Hungary coincides with the first Hungarian school. I am humbly but proud to be an alumni of that first Hungarian school at the Archabbey of Pannonhalma in Hungary. It's a Mount of Saint Martin. It is called traditionally Pannonhalma. So Benedictines started to Christianize, to evangelize, to spread the word, spread the culture through education. It was a harsh thing. It was not easy because after the death of St. Stephen, there was also a pagan rebellion. They killed a lot of bishops and monks and so on. But what I am reflecting to this 1,000-year-old story, because first came a political decision that we want to build a Christian country, a Christian nation. And to have a Christian country is first of all a political decision. It was, and I'm convinced that also nowadays it is first of all a political decision. Of course, it won't succeed without Christians, without the church doing its own job. But the politics can prepare the opportunity for the church to do its own job. And also nowadays we have to do some hard choices, decisions, because if we don't do it, others will do that same choice and that same decisions. When the European Union took the decision not to include an explicit reference to Christianity in the European founding treaties, then it was a political decision to adopt other sources of legitimacy. Okay, Hungary, with its new constitution from 2011, chose to adopt Christianity as founding rule, as a founding principles, and started to transform the whole system of the state according to this. Of course, we are a secularized Western-like country, but the decision, the right way is there. And therefore, Christian schools are very important. During the last 12 years, the church-run schools, mostly Christian schools of different denominations, have more than doubled. Nowadays, and this is important because during communism that we had, Christian schools were nationalized. There was no religious education. So Christian schools have doubled in the last 12 years, and nowadays a quarter of the Hungarian students are frequenting religious education, church schools run by churches. And every school, also the state-run schools, have catechism or ethic, it can be chosen, ethic or religious education incorporated in the national curriculum. It is a democracy, there is a freedom of choosing which denomination to follow or not to adopt a religion and to follow ethics, but the population says that religion, the churches are important because they are choosing for the children the church-run schools. This is how, from a political decision of 1,000 years ago, we have to adopt it again in order not to lose that momentum and to go further, asking for Christian people, both in politics and in monasteries and the church, to do their job and help our society. Thank you for your patience.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ για την τοποθέτηση.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ersegi. Και να πω ότι είναι πολύ σημαντικό. You help ambassadors to understand the religion of the country they are sent to. This is important to understand the customs and beliefs, and what you said that in recent years church schools or ecclesiastical schools more than doubled in number. So there is a turning of pupils towards religion. They want to know religion, and we need to give a push to this religious education. We now have another ex-Minister of Education, Mr. Gens Polo, former deputy from Albania, and we would like him to express his views briefly so that we can have time for dialogue afterwards.
Thank you. Krishti ungjall, vërtet ungjall. This is, in English, should be Christ is reason, truly is reason. Translation, I assume, needed for most of you. And since we have two major Christian communities in Albania, Orthodox and Catholic, and both Eastern are official feasts, are official holidays, and it was mentioned before this cleavage this year between the Gregorian and Julian calendar. So basically, almost we celebrate a double Pentecost in Albania. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. Thank you to the Assembly, and I will try to keep it short, since we are the last panel, and that's the thing between you and dinner, and that's not always a comfortable situation. But I would remember of last year in Porto Caras, almost the same participants were discussing what should we do so that in the European political debate, in the public space, there is more reference to the Christian values. So, need to say that I'm very glad that yesterday a declaration referring to this issue in direct language, non-diplomatic perhaps language, was signed between our Orthodox Assembly, the COMECE, the Council of Christian Churches, and Together for Europe. And I hope that this statement, that it's sort of a first time at my knowledge, will be spread publicly through the debate during the campaign for European elections, or media, or social media, etc., so that there is a momentum and it develops further, and it doesn't stop with the day of the European elections. It was said before that sometimes the MEPs, but that could apply to members of parliament in the EU member states or candidate states like Albania, that they sometimes do vote legislation that is not in line, or maybe also against Christian values. Why do they do it? Because, I mean, that's the definition of political animal. Go with the flow, be in line with the majority. What is the party line? The party line with the cultural zeitgeist at the momentum, and that has changed. That has changed very much. So, I mean, that brings us back to the Christian values that were debated. I mean, what are they? I mean, discussing them in principle, discussing them in theory, referring to them as the backbone of the European culture, that's fine. So, I mean, it is one thing to have them as a cultural reference, as an identitarian reference. Europe, a Christian club, yes. Also, a culture shaped by Christianity or the Judeo-Christian culture, yes. But also from Greek-Roman classical philosophy, also Enlightenment, we have to say, this is fine, this is identity. But, I mean, the subject of our conference today has been how do we apply them in concrete, specific policy that has impact on daily life. And then, I mean, we need to be specific and concrete, because if we keep it at an abstract level, we heard, I mean, we have different opinions or different interpretation or the same, but as long as we keep it abstract, I mean, we can say anything, because things are so general. Let me give you a specific example. I mean, what would be the family policy of a practicing and believing Jew, and that differ from the one of a believing and practicing Muslim? Probably there wouldn't be any difference, or there would, if it is, it would be minor. And the same can be said about, I mean, the human dignity between, say, Orthodox, Catholic, or Lutheran. If we discuss legislation in practical terms, then, I mean, it's the hard bone and the decision to be taken. And that applies to Christian, of course, but that would apply also to, as I said, to other Abrahamic religions. Give you a specific experience of mine. I've been a member of the Democratic Party in Albania for longer than 3 decades. There are 2 parties, center-right is Democratic Party, Socialist Party is obviously center-left, and we've been a member of the European People's Party, which is a roof organization, and the previous name of the European People's Party, it was the European Union Christian Democrats. And usually there was a lot of exchange about programs and values underpinning the programs, and despite the Democratic Party or the Socialist Party in Albania being voted and having members, Christians, Orthodox Catholic, Muslims, Sunni and Bektashi the same, I mean, there was never an issue and never a trouble in adopting what are basically programs based on Christian values. I mean, we are not making it about theology. There could be an issue or not an issue, I don't know, because it's never been the case. But as long as the specific laws and specific decisions are based on those generalized values that we need to remember derive from the New Testament, I mean, things are fine also in cases like Albania, that par excellence is a multi-confessional nation. It's not defined by the religious identity, as we heard of Greece before, because it has a relatively different history, but is defined by the language and the shared memory, while the religion is still important, but plays in the identity issue a secondary role. So therefore, if we adopt it in a way, in this way, in specific policy and in specific legislation, that should be based in those values, but need to remember that that should refer not to just any value or just any idea that mankind can create, but goes back to something that is sacred and divine and above us, and that is the Holy Book. Why necessarily Christian values? There are many arguments for that, and we've heard. But European history has a tragic experience when it was led by different ideologies, where humanism was godless, and we know that in 20th century it derived into Nazism and communism, and that actually it's a good warning for not adopting in the 20th century, in a different situation, variation or avatars of godless humanity, be it in the woke movement or be it in any other ideology that is presented, I mean, under false pretenses, saving the world. So it was said that I was Minister of Education. I started serving as a Minister of Education in a previous era, in 2005. It was said many times that, I mean, Europe has changed in the last 25 years, and at the time we didn't have queer shows for underage children in schools. Joking, we still don't have them, no worry. But there are cultural trends that are worrying, and that, I mean, they are spread through the media, through the internet, but sometimes also, unfortunately, in our case, by the authorities. They want to please the current zeitgeist. They want to please a certain international organization. So they try to introduce in the forums at school or in the kindergarten, rather, parent A and parent B instead of mother and father. Currently, the government has presented legislation widening the possibility of abortion and adopting surrogacy, and of course the opposition against that, but it's a good thing that churches, all of the churches, Christian and Muslim in Albania, are up in arms against this law, and this is a concrete case where they act socially, they act within the framework of the separation that we have between state and the church, but still prove that they are a social force acting for good according to beliefs and values that we could easily refer as Christian values. One last thing about the European Union. Of course, Albania and the candidate countries in the Western Balkans that are still not members, but as I said, candidate countries are blessed to be in that relationship. I mean, the European Union might not be perfect, but still is a very good thing. I mean, imagine that we would be in the Caucasus somewhere else. Still, and there is wide popular support and political support for one day. We don't know when it will be, and nobody knows when it will be. I mean, the country will adhere, will exceed the European Union. Still, sometimes those new ideologies are supported by people with influence within the European Union, especially the Commission. I mean, we heard here panelists from Sweden and Greece, which are seasoned members of the European Union, or Germany and Italy are founding members of the European Union. Albania or other countries in the Western Balkans are candidate countries, and therefore Brussels has a much more influence upon that. One specific case, I mean, years ago we did a major judiciary reform, and the European Union spent many millions of tax dollars to help Albania. That's a separate issue. But I mean, with a package about prosecution and courts, there was, in the non-discriminatory article of the Constitution, there was something about sexual orientation. And when the EU paid advisor who helped drafting it was asked by parliamentarians, I mean, why is that? I mean, nothing to do with courts. And yeah, I know, but I mean, certain people in Brussels will like it. So I'm not discussing the preposterous arrogance in this case, but I mean, the idea was that to have, to get through the back door to the homosexual marriage. I know, I mean, Greece has had a debate and a vote in parliament, don't want to get into that, but since Albania, in the Albanian parliament, there was no majority. And today, I think there is no majority for that. They thought that by introducing it there, they could go to the Constitutional Court, which would be pliable, to get it adopted, and that was a wish of certain people in the Commission. It's not nothing to do with the European treaties. There is not an official condition, but it's a way of influencing that's not very positive. But back again to the beginning, I mean, with the affirmation of the Christian values in the European public debate, I mean, that can change further to the positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Polo. Θυμίζω απλώς αυτό το σλόγγαν ότι η Ευρώπη είναι χριστιανική.
Let me remind you of the slogan that Europe is a Christian club coming from a neighboring country. Thank you very much for your approach to Christian values as well as bioethical dilemmas you raised. The Archbishop of Albania has been trying hard for the resurrection of Albania in recent years. And of course, man is a political animal, but it must produce politics and culture rather than being having them being imposed upon him. Thank you very much.